Push it like it's green.
It's supposed to be Warren's job.
I did say we're going to get started in just a minute, but the problem is they can't hear that out there. It's just in here. Oh, it happens to all of us.
Right on. Upside down umbrella.
Good morning. We're going to get started here in just a second.
Now we'll start meeting with around. We prefer you to be with me.
Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. Happy Friday, everybody. And glad to see that we had a turnout fearing the lovely Southwest Florida weather we had this morning. All right. Let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and start with introductions. Warren's got the mic.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Moore, Assistant County Manager, representing County Manager Dave Horner. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lee County Commissioner Brian Heumann.
Rafael Lopez, Council Member, Village of Estero.
I'm going to stay seated so the rest of you don't have to stand up. Holly Smith, City of Sanibel.
Good morning, Rachel Caduc, Cape Coral City Council.
Good morning, Laura Carr, City of Bonita Springs City Council.
Good morning, Gita Minaya with Minaya Learning Global Solutions and President of the Horizon Foundation.
Good morning, Ben Spence, Lee Health and Vice Chair, Horizon Council.
Good morning, everyone. Sam Fisher, Chair of the Lee County School Board.
Good morning, all. Gerard Carrington, Florida Gulf Coast University. Go Eagles.
Good morning, Robbie Webster with Edison National Bank, Baggy Islands, and I represent the Industrial Development Authority.
Good morning, Gary Tasman, Cushman and Wakefield Commercial Properties, and I'm here representing the Business Issues Committee.
Karen Moore, Southwest Florida Business Today, and Chair of the Business Resources Committee.
Good morning, everyone. Richard Aiken, Bylaws Task Force.
Good morning, Shelby Bauckham, Southwest Florida STEM Education, and the STEM to Career Committee Chair. Good morning, Donna Germain, Chamber of Commerce of Cape Coral, representing the Southwest Florida Alliance of Chambers.
Good morning, Ryan Richards, RG Architects, representing the American Institute of Architects.
Good morning, Tom Muir with WeWell. We turn on the garbage into energy every day, representing the Chamber of Southwest Florida.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to stand, but don't feel obligated to. My name is Jordan with Emerge Southwest Florida, and I represent the Greater Estero Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Robert Goltz, Greater Fort Myers Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Mark Best, Brunbrook Restaurant Group, representing Sanibel Captiva Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Randy Chris Commercial Group, representing the Lee County Port Authority Airport Special Management Committee.
Mary Gentile, LK Property Management, Member at Large.
Jacob Gonzalez, representing the Minnesota Twins.
Good morning, Beth Larson, ELA Lahaina Realty, member at large.
Christine Sardina, Tri-County Apprenticeship Academy, member at large.
Good morning, Sean Smith, Boston Red Sox, member at large.
Chris Spyro, Spyro and Associates, large member. You tried to skip me? Good morning, Mark Stevens, Stevens Construction, member at large.
Good morning, Denise Vidal with LCEC, member at large. Buenos dias and good morning, Edie Button, Castro Strategies, Business Coaching and Consulting, and I'm the chair for the Southwest Florida Hispanic Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Tony Robbie with Twin Waters and representing the Tourist Development Council.
Good morning, Pam Whitnauer Bratton, Remax Realty Group, and president of CCIM Southwest Florida District.
Good morning, Rob Harris, Executive Director of the Southwest Regional Manufacturers Association.
Good morning, Shane Spring, representing the Royal Palm Coast Realtor Association.
Good morning, Julie Ramirez. I'm the Executive Director of Lee County Medical Society.
Good morning, Richard Dorling with Marvin Homes, representing the Lee Building Industry Association.
Good morning, Jay Johnson, Bubba's Roadhouse, representing the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association.
Good morning, Mike Biskey with B&I Contractors, representing Career Source, Southwest Florida.
Good morning, Dusty Shelton, representing Cape Coral Council for Progress. Good morning, Jeannie Richards, representing Associated Builders and Contractors. It's a mouthful. Go Gators.
Treasurer, Matt Rapsdorf.
Well, good morning, and again, thank you for everybody fearing the weather and making it out today. We appreciate it. All right, do I have a motion for approval of the minutes from May 23rd? Evan. All right. So moved. All in favor? Aye. So moved. Short update from the chair position. Well, one, I just realized this is probably the first time that I did not wear heels. And so I am like hidden behind this TV monitor here. So note to self, I need to wear heels on Fridays. A couple of reminders. The Industry Appreciation Awards, October 24th. We still have nominations that are open, and we did extend them out to, I believe it is July 10th. So please make sure that nominations are happening. We do have a good pool, I would say, but we certainly would like to have more candidates to be able to pull from. And it is time that we start talking about our strategic planning for those of you that are on our executive committee. It will be on October 10th, so make sure that you're saving that date. And we will have Scott Winters, who is our facilitator this year, and our chair, vice chair, Ben Spence, will be also coordinating and working on that as well. So we're looking forward to that, and the planning is underway. The other thing is we did have a Business Issues Committee presentation at the that's it, Emergency Operations Center. And I was there, and it was quite lovely. But a lot of great material that was covered in that presentation. So there is information on the foundation website, but if you want a copy of the presentation, you can see Amanda, and she'll get you that information. So good review and reminders and process. Exactly. Exactly. Good material. Great material. So if you don't have it, you should get it, especially as we're full swing into hurricane season. Let's see, what else? I think that that's going to be it for me. I would like to welcome our Horizon Foundation president, Dr. Guido Minaya.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And it's interesting, man. 6 months behind us, 6 months to go, and then we've got, geez, it just flies. Incredible. Well, let's see, a few notes, noteworthy notes. Fundraising, we're on track to meet our annual goal. We're at $280,000 in terms of commitment. In our annual goal is $575. And thank you to all our 2025 investors. Your support is greatly appreciated. And as you may recall, we announced a new investor level at the beginning of the year, and that was the innovator level, which is at $50,000. So I'm happy to report that we have our first innovator level investor. And thank you to Robbie and the IDA for their generous support of the Horizon Foundation, our first innovator level investor. Let's see, Edison Awards. So, as you may recall, we talked about creating an Edison Awards-focused committee to optimize the opportunity that we have before us around innovation, around this global event. And we created that committee. And again, I'm happy to report that Sandy Stillwell-Youngquist has graciously accepted being the chair of that committee. It'll be a committee that's both on the Horizon Foundation and the Horizon Council. So it'll be our first joint committee. And Tatum Walker will serve as our key liaison. And of course, Bill Johnson will be supporting that committee. And let's see, we are looking at, and again, one of those key initiatives for that committee is the AIHI School Challenge, Investor Appreciation Event. We're looking to have an Investor Appreciation Event at the end of this summer. So Bill Johnson and Tatum are working on that. The event will take place at the Lee Health Sports Complex at a Mighty Muscles game. The date will probably be finalized early next week, so you'll receive a save the date on that. Anything else on that, Bill? That's about it. Okay, that's it. Artie, thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to kind of stand off to the side so I can see everybody in the first row here. All right, Board of County Commissioners, Commissioner Brian Hammond.
Good morning, everyone. How's everybody? Good. Hard to wake up on a rainy morning like that, right? But I will tell you, today is all about roads and traffic, and we've got Don Scott here to talk with us. And I kind of wish every day could be like this morning. I don't know about you all, but on my drive-in from Cape Coral, people were doing 60 on 41. So at 7:30 in the morning, I don't know. I think we definitely are back to more of a seasonal economy because it seems like the roads were a little lighter this morning. But it's good to see you guys this morning. I want to talk briefly about the plan for roads. So here in Lee County, Florida, you really have, I think, at least 3 different agencies that work on the roads here. You've got the state, which is the Florida Department of Transportation, and they handle the major roads like the highways and the state roads. Pine Island Road in Cape Coral is State Road 78. So they work on those roads, and they plan projects and budget projects, and they do seek input from the county on how they should do those projects. But then you've got the county, which has their own road program and county-maintained roads that usually connect cities to unincorporated areas and cities to other cities. We'll work on those plans. We put together what we call a 5-year capital improvement program, meaning we try to budget the roads that we're going to build for the next 5 years into one budget. And then you've got cities that work on the local roads within the city boundaries there too. All of us come together at an organization called the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, and that's what Don is the executive director of. There are 18 of us on the board. So talk about a fun meeting, right? 18 politicians in a room around a table. No, it is a great opportunity to coordinate with each other about the projects that are going on in our different areas and to plan. And we don't just plan at the MPO for the short term. We actually plan for the long range, like 20 to 25 years out. And I think Don's going to talk about some of that. So some of the major road projects that we're working on in Lee County with the Lee County Department of Transportation, we own a couple of the bridges. We own the Cape Coral Bridge and we own the Midpoint Bridge. And what we're working on the Cape Coral Bridge is we've got a widening coming up. We're going to take it out out to 6 lanes, starting construction sometime in late 2027 there. And the goal when we build that is to build a completely new span alongside the 2 existing spans that we can then put 4 lanes of traffic on and try to keep 4 lanes of traffic going the whole time while we then demolish and rebuild the other side of the bridge. Ultimately, you'll end up with a 6-lane bridge. But the thing is, you can't just fix the bridge or widen the bridge, because otherwise then you'll really just end up with more parking on the bridge. You have to fix the intersections around the bridge too. And so we're going to coordinate with intersection improvements at McGregor and in College there, and then on the Cape Coral side, same thing with Del Prado and Cape Coral Parkway. And that's also being coordinated with some improvements that the City of Cape Coral is making to Cape Coral Parkway as well. The Midpoint Bridge, we had on our plan to widen the Midpoint Bridge. However, we looked at that, we looked at the cost of the project, and we realized really the Midpoint Bridge's problem is not necessarily the bridge itself, it's the choke points at the intersections on either side of the bridge. And so we scaled that project more to intersection improvements on either side of the bridge, and we're working on funding that project as well. Finally, as we talk about roads, how do you pay for them? Let me tell you how you guys pay for them, because obviously it's all coming from you, your tax dollars. We have gas taxes are one of the major funding sources for maintaining and building roads. And think about what's happened over the last decade. Everybody's driving either an electric vehicle now or a much more fuel-efficient vehicle than they have previously. So what does that mean? People are actually buying less gas, and we're collecting less in gas tax. So we're starting to see what used to be a growth revenue for us, where we had more money to pay for the roads as people moved here, has actually started to really level off, and in some cases even go down a little bit. The other source of funding we have to pay for roads is impact fees. We do collect impact fees here in Lee County, and we do put those impact fees towards new roads and road expansions that need to be built in relation to the impacts that are happening. And the other funding source that we have here in Lee County is we have excess toll reserves. So obviously we have the Cape Coral Bridge and the Midpoint Bridge and the Sanibel Bridge that you pay a toll if you're going over. The number one purpose of that toll is to pay the loan payment on those bridges. So we borrowed money to pay for those bridges, and then we collected a toll to make the payment to pay for those bridges. Any money that's collected over the loan payment can be put towards improvements to roads along the corridor that those bridges are on. So think about Burnt Store Road. About 10 years ago, Burnt Store Road was 2 lanes from the Charlotte County line all the way down to Pine Island Road. We put the excess tolls from the Cape Coral and the Midpoint Bridge towards widening Burnt Store Road in Cape Coral, because we saw the growth that's happening out there and the real demand to answer that widening need out there. And so that's what we do with your toll money. And I know Don's going to be a lot more in-depth with this. And so if you have any questions, of course, the Lee County Commissioners are always here. Please reach out. I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Have to move this way back down. Mr. John Talmadge.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. I don't have a whole lot to report this morning. I do want to acknowledge Sam Pygott, my colleague from the VCB, who's here today. Secondly, we had a meeting of technical colleges from the region yesterday. And what a jewel we have in all these technical colleges from all 5 counties. But Sam Fisher reminded me, we created the first RN to NP program in the state that everyone else now is following the curriculum for. And it's a real home run for Lee Health and our health care system. And so, Sam, congratulations. Finally, I'd just like to report that we're going to create an AI innovation hub for small businesses. It'll be the first in the nation. It's going to be virtual mostly, but we'll have an in-person presence as well. And we're going to create an advisory board for it. And if you're interested in participating, let me know. But we're going to be doing this with the SBDC and Angelo Biasi with Solidly, and Gina's been very involved in this. And so we'll be kicking that off hopefully in the fall sometime. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, so let's move right along into the Nonprofit Minute. We have Alicia Shannon from the Children's Advocacy Center. And I'm going to read just a little bit of her bio before she comes up. And so Alicia is the CEO of the Children's Advocacy Center, whose mission is to create safe and nurturing space for children affected by abuse and neglect, where they can share their stories, heal, and thrive with comprehensive support. She helps lead the agency in their strategic plan, sets the tone and cultural framework, and serves as the main external voice. Please take a moment to read the rest of her bio because it's very interesting, and she did graduate from the University of Florida, so I heard Go Gators over here, and I know there's a couple up here, so I will mention that. But for time, let's go ahead and ask Alicia to go ahead and come up and start her presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry, I move around a lot. I know it's called Nonprofit Minute, but Warren said I had 45 minutes, so I hope that's okay. Just sit back, get comfortable, should be good. Thank you, Helen. As she said, that's our mission. I am Alicia Shannon. I'm the CEO of the Children's Advocacy Center, and a lot of people might be wondering, what does that mission mean? If you know what the Children's Advocacy Center is, then what you probably think is that we are the place where if a child has been abused or neglected or sexually abused, they're going to come to us. So if it weren't for CAC, and I'll use CAC in the future, if a child was abused, neglected, or sexually abused, they would have to go to the hospital, see a doctor, get a medical exam, and then they have to go to the police station, see a bunch of uniformed officers, tell their story again, and then they have to go to the Department of Children and Families if that abuse or neglect is connected within their family. And they have to go all these places. They have to continue to share their story again and again and relive that trauma. Potentially, if they're a child and they're scared, they might be saying the wrong thing, or they might, change their story a little bit, which makes them seem less credible. At the CAC, they come to us and they share their story one time, and we create that safe and inviting space for them. We have trained interviewers to collect that information. The interviews are recorded. We work very closely with law enforcement and Department of Children and Families so that we can share that interview, and then they can use that to hopefully put the perpetrator behind bars. And then they don't have to continue to do that story again and again. We have nurse practitioners on staff where they can get medically examined. But then what's great about it is those are not the only things that we do. A lot of people do not realize that we actually have 5 departments and 14 different programs. So while they do come to us and they have those interviews and those exams, they also have so many other things. The main thing is we have therapists on staff to help those families heal after that trauma. Because how do we end that cycle? We're always saying we're trying to put ourselves out of business, right? So we have an entire licensed mental health counseling team that provides those therapeutic services so they can really heal. They provide those services for the families as well so that they can get out of that trauma. We have advocacy resources so that we can help identify the risk factors, break down the barriers, and get that family out of the situation, connecting them to different resources in the community. And then we have an entire prevention team that, like I said, what we're trying to do is prevent this from happening again and again. So we have an after-school program. We have parenting classes. We run one of the United Way Resiliency Hubs off of Palm Beach Boulevard. We have a fatherhood initiative, and then we have an entire community awareness and outreach department where we provide education. We can go to any business and provide a 3-hour training to your staff to teach you the signs to look for of sexual abuse in children and what to do, how to identify it. And then on the flip side, we do that for children as well, grades kindergarten through 12, help those children identify what sexual abuse looks like, what to do if it happens to them, how to protect themselves, and all of our services are free. We're one of 26 in the state. There's over 900 CACs in the country, and we are one of the largest. So we actually serve more than most. One of the questions I get asked most is, well, how many kids are you serving? It can't be that many, right? This is how many people we served last year. We're serving thousands of clients. And again, most of our services are for prevention and outreach. But the statistics show that 1 in 10 children will be physically abused by the time they're 18. 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually molested before they're 18. And 93% of children know their abuser. So if you think that this is not happening here, and you think that you don't know somebody that this has happened to, the odds are that you do. For sure. So I don't know how this nonprofit minute works. I haven't been here. I don't know if you have questions, but I was told 3 slides. So that's all I get. I could talk forever, though.
Alicia, thank you so much for that. And are you going to be staying for the rest of the presentation? So, yes, if you have any questions, please reach out to Alicia after we wrap up. I'll have her come up to the front, so if there's any questions. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Appreciate the work that you're doing. That's extremely important, and we appreciate that. All right. So moving along. Sorry, flip the page here. As Commissioner Hammond said, we have Don Scott here with us today that serves as the Executive Director of the Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization. He is responsible for managing and overseeing a variety of short and long-range transportation plans and projects to improve mobility in Lee County. That's important. We appreciate that. Don has over 35 years of transportation planning experience working in the public and private sectors. Prior to joining the Lee County MPO, his experience included working for Collier County, PBS&J, and FDOT in Tampa and Fort Myers. Don is a graduate of the University of Massachusetts and a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. All right, Don, if you want to come up, welcome, Don.
All right, good morning. So we don't have cheers for UMass, but I had a son that just graduated from UF, so go Gators. So today's presentation, I'm going to give background on the MPO. You always have to hear it. There's many members in here that have heard this before, or either on our CAC or on our board as well. I got some transportation stats. I'm going to talk about the long-range plan. It's due at the end of the year. Our New Horizons 2050. It adds 5 years each time. So as Commissioner Hammond said, 25 years out as requirements of federal highway. Overview existing and planned projects, emerging transportation options and technology, which is always popular, and then some ongoing challenges. So you always have to hear, what is the MPO? Federal Highway always says, get something out there to say what the MPO is. So we were formed in 1977 based on the population in the city of Fort Myers. Now it's called the Cape Coral Urbanized Area. It was the Fort Myers Urbanized Area went over 50,000 in a particular area that based on what they look at. There are 18 members, as Commissioner said. There are also alternates as well. So we have the 5 county commissioners and then representatives of each of the city councils. Based on federal and state laws, we have stuff in state statute and also federal regulations. Changes every once in a while, but not too much, and I'll address a little bit coming up. Then also, it really is the big part of it is the board has a say in how the state and federal funds are spent. So our major requirements are the long-range plan. This one's due in December, and again, 5 years later, it'll be 2055 plan. Federal and state priorities, we just did our priorities last week with the board, and then the 5-year TIP, as Commissioner Hammond says, each of the jurisdictions have like a CIP that's also in the back of that document, but this shows all the federal and state money that's spent in the county, which includes airports, transit, everything that's spent from a federal and state standpoint. So the first thing is the long-range plan update. Population growth, if you'll notice on the left there, we have 2019 population. The reason why is 2019, we usually try to match it up with the census, but we do a lot of travel conditions and traffic counts, and 2020 was a little bit weird when you talk about the pandemic and for traffic volumes. So that was set at 2019 for the model purposes. Obviously, our growth now since even that time is probably about 80 or 90,000 more than what's shown on there at 752 at that time. The growth for 2050 is projected at 1,79 million. Also look at employment growth. So this is all put in the traffic model. Essentially, you put all the growth out there, houses are going to be out there, how many persons per household, and then where the work the employment is, all the commercial that's out there, and you run a model to figure out what some of the issues are. We've done things where you look into the past. How did we address, did we come going all the way back 30 years? When you look at the population over those years and what was projected at those times, I would say the last 4 that we looked at, 2 times we were about right for population for projecting for the future, and 2 times it was too low. And that gets to be, we grow a little bit faster than everybody says. During the downturn, everybody said, don't worry about it. You don't have to build these things. And there's the time we probably should have been building a lot because the prices were better at that time. So regional stats, just to give you an idea around this, Collier is projected to grow to 524,000 in 2050, Charlotte to 290,000. Mean travel time, we're at about 28.5. I will say the state's about 28.5, so we have about the same mean travel time to work as the state does, and you'll see that Charlotte and Collier are a little bit lower than that. Same thing with drive alone. We have more that drive alone than others. The vehicle miles traveled, I was saying up to a couple of years ago that our VMT was growing faster than our population, but that is about our population growth. It pretty much matches up with that. So these are our goals in timeline. I'm just going to jump to the bottom part of this. We're about in the middle here. We have been defining the needs plan. We have like one more run of needs. We're doing a bunch of transit improvements to see how that works as part of the process. And then we'll dive into the cost feasible plan. That's a matching up the money that's projected from each of the jurisdictions, the state and the feds, to say, all right, how much can we actually pay for based on the project cost? We will be adopting the plan in December with the board. So this is the current needs plan that we have run. There will be a couple of changes in there by the time we get to the end of it. You'll see things that very needed projects like the Alico extension from Alico over to State Road 82 at Sunshine. There's some other things in there you probably won't see when we get to the cost feasible plan, like the Luckett extension in the middle of Lehigh Acres, just based on cost and how much money is available. There are other question marks as you move through. The Pentagon-looking things are bridges that need to be replaced within the time frame that we're talking about. And that's about, the last time I added it up was about $9.8 billion. And I will say it's probably conservative, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. Some of our right-of-way costs based on water retention is multiplying based on what we have presented before. For the transit needs, we've been running some stuff with Bus Rapid Transit. That is where you have some where it runs in its own lane. It might be for about 80% of the thing. At other times it would be within mixed traffic. Express buses, ferries. I'm not sure that's really something that from the government side, but there are some private things that have started in the back, and you kind of look at that to try to put it in the plan if there's any way to go after some federal money in the future. Local improvements is part of it, and trying to reduce the time. If it's 30 minutes, can you reduce it to 15-minute headway to get picked up from buses? There was some plans a few years ago to do autonomous vehicle demonstration project in downtown Fort Myers. That's kind of been on hold. We had some meetings previously about that. And then microtransit or mobility on demand now is in Bonita Springs and in Lehigh Acres, and it's fairly popular in that area. It has a little bit. It was a little bit more popular when it was on the Uber app and would come up. They had to go, Uber kicked them off the app, and they had to get their own app. So it's a little bit not as easy to get to, I guess you'd say. So these are the revenue estimates that are in year of expenditure. And year of expenditure is that we match up the projects in the same thing. It's one of our federal requirements of that process. But if you go all the way out to 2041 to 2050, it's about 80% growth at that time period, about 3.3% growth over the number of years that you're doing. So it looks like a whole lot of money, but when you start looking at the project costs. But one point I want to point out specifically is line number 2 and line number 3. So the first line is FDOT, their strategic intermodal system. They spend 75% of their funds on that system. So that includes things in our roadway system in Lee County like I-75, State Road 80, State Road 31. So it doesn't include things like 78 or US 41. And That's because they did this years and years ago, about 20, 30 years ago. Used to be called the Florida Interstate Highway System, where they were going to do these higher capacity. They didn't want it to be things like 41 where there were a lot of signals. It didn't really go very far because when you start talking about trying to do grade separations everywhere and meet the requirements at that time, that transitioned to the SIS. But in their mind, these are their most important corridors, so that's where most of their money goes. That is actually a fixed number at the top. That is matched up with projects that they plan to do by 2050, which includes not only the project I'll talk about in a minute, widening I-75 south of Corkscrew, but what happens north of there as well. But row number 2, row number 3, $165 million for state highway system that's not on the SIS, and the other roads of $149 million. Last time around, those two numbers were about $1 billion, and this time around, it's about $340 million. Now, FDOT have said, you never really got $1 billion, which I agree, we never did, but it was probably more like $500 million to $600 million, not exactly $300 million. So we'll see what happens over time. I'm kind of looking at it where we'll just do a lot more amendments in the process. We have a survey going right now. We'll go through the middle of next month or so. If you want to get on there and talk about your issues with traffic, not 60 miles an hour on US 41, but some other things in there. Some of the comments we've gotten so far it's actually a little surprising to me, because usually when we put a survey out there, the people that are responding have been living here less than 5 years. The majority of it so far that we had looked at was over 20 years. But there was one of the questions in there of, do you think that within the last 5 years, do you think the roads got better or have gotten worse or about the same? I would have been probably in the middle. We had some that said got better, and we had some that say, quite a few that said it got a lot worse as part of that process too. One of the main complaints obviously out there is driver behavior. If you talk about crashes and the statistics with that, but also the fact that people are looking at their phones, distracted driving, those are one of the things that pops up so much. And even in our Safe Streets for All grant, when everybody's talking about safety, everybody's complaining about driver's distraction. So what are some of the major roadway projects underway? Three Oaks Extension by the county includes new 4 lanes up to Daniels, and also 8 laning from Fiddlesticks over to the interstate, which then also hooks up with the DDI at Daniels. I'll talk about that in a second. Corkscrew Road from Bellaterra to east of Alico should be done by spring of 2026. That's 4 lanes further out. State Road 31, this is Babcock widening to 4 lanes from North River Road up to Blake Babcock Drive. Completion should be around 2027. That actually goes down to 78. I'm not sure why it says North River Road. I think that's the part that's under right now. They had to buy some right-of-way south of there. The big Carlos replacement, you can see the picture to the left there, completion next year. Ortez for Colonial to State Road 82, also widening to 4 lanes. That's also completion next year. And then Littleton, which will be done later this summer. So at the bottom is what the divergent diamond is going to look like at Daniels, and you can see where they're cutting the slope on the left side there. They had to get a lane in there, because you look under there, you're like, can you get all those lanes under there? Well, if you do some work under there, maybe you can. That's going to match up with what the county's doing with the 8 laning, but as people have been talking about at Colonial and I-75, not when they said originally it was done, but when the CFI and everything else is done, it's working very well right now. So I-75, this was moving Florida forward by the governor, put a bunch of money around the state, like I-4 as well, and some other areas, but we got widening of I-75 from, I put the county line, but the project goes from Golden Gate Parkway all the way up to Corkscrew Road. It's 8 lanes up to Immokalee, and then Immokalee to Corkscrew Road will be 10 lanes. And that's essentially what the master plan calls out as the ultimate. I will say, they said the same thing in I-4, and now they call it the beyond the ultimate. So who knows in the future. Cape Coral Bridge replacement, new 6 lanes. It will start in the next 5 years. Lico Connector as well. Start at least in the next 5 years. Edison Ave, this is the City of Fort Myers project extending out to Ortez. And Challenger Road extension, if you know where the hospital is being built, Challenger will go north and hook it up into Winkler. State Road 31 from 80 to 78, that's state widening that area with the Wilson-Piggott Bridge is 2 to 6 lanes. It also includes a flyover from State Road 80 to 31 with that heavy left there. That's about a $210 million project. So when you look at our TIP, that's a big portion of it. So when we talk about some of the, if you said, all right, what do you think's coming forward in the future? Well, obviously things that we have to do a project development, or whoever does, the state or the county. If you want to try to go after federal funds, you have to do a project development environment study. So these are some of the projects that were in the works or going towards design at the moment. US 41 and Bonita Beach Road, the design is programmed. They got another, there's a little bit more that came in as well. Burnstow Road from Van Buren to Norfolk Charlotte County line, that's a PD&E study to be wrapped up this summer, but it's already under design, and 60% design is planned to be done by the end of the year, and the county's working on trying to move the right-of-way forward. State Road 78 from I-75 to State Road 31. The PD&E is underway. I'm not sure about the design because the project manager said, well, if you don't get design funded, you can't get consistency. So essentially approval of the PD&E document. So I'm not sure where that's going to end up in the, it's about $8 million design project. Old 41 from US 41 to Bonita Beach, design program in 2027. It's changing as we speak. In the Collier section, because this goes from 41 in Collier up to the county line, and then it's Bonita Beach, Project Bonita Springs, project up to Bonita Beach Road. But anyway, the section in Collier, the right-of-way is ballooned to about $80 million, which was actually, if you talk about the whole project, originally was going to cost that. This project started out as actually a pathway project, where we had bicyclists that were killed out. Let's just try to get a pathway out there. And FDOT said, well, you know you're going to have to widen it in the future, so go ahead and do a PD&E study. So 10 years later, we are talking about, well, maybe we're not even getting a pathway at the moment. State Road 78 from Burnstow Road to US 41, the city of Cape Coral funded the design, the PD&E as part of that project. So now we're seeking design funds. US 41 and 6 Mile Cypress, they just had a public meeting of the original part of it, just the first workshop part of it. We'll see how that moves forward. That used to be, at least during season, the worst intersection in the county. In the Cape Coral Bridge replacement, currently under design, they did go through a PD&E process if they could get federal funds for that as well. So Lee-Tran, the ridership's at about $2 million per year. The Lehigh Acres Transfer Center just opened, and if you are interested, the price out there right now for the mobility on demand is actually half price for right now in the Lehigh area. Bonita and Lehigh Acres have the mobility on demand. You can see the picture at the bottom of the new facility. And then there's also, Lee-Tran's working on doing some bus, shelter replacements in different areas, and also trying to meet ADA requirements in different parts of the county. So RSW, the 3.2 million visitors in 2024, and then we look at survey data. We always look at survey data, how everybody feels about traffic. 56% travel by air, 25% by personal vehicle, and from a survey, 36% are concerned with traffic. Not a big surprise. RSW served 11 million passengers in 2024. It's up about 9% and about 24% increase over 10 years, so a little faster than population. And the cargo weight was 147 million pounds, and it's down about 16%. So transportation projects in the region under construction, I'd like to touch on at least some things that are happening around us. Vanderbilt Beach Road from 951 to A Street's under construction right now, new and 4 lanes. That's new 6 and 4. Be some completion in summer of 2026. The I-75 at Collier Boulevard interchange improvements, if somebody drove down there and said, what are they doing down there? And if you look at the bottom there, if you're coming up 951 and you want to get on the interstate, you don't have to go through the 84 the Davis Boulevard intersection anymore. Each side of it, you get on those ramps and fly over that, and they're also putting loops in there. Much different than some of the interchanges we're seeing lately where they're just doing the DDI. I-75 at Pine Ridge, that's under construction as well. They're doing a DDI there as well. State Road 82 from Hendry County to Gators Slough, that's the last section of State Road 82 to be widened, and that's under construction right now with a completion in January of 2027. And then the State Road 3174 roundabout in Charlotte with a completion in 2026. So other currently MPO planning projects, Lee and Collier MPO consolidation study. That's being done in the sense of 2 years ago there was legislation that was put in to that would say, hey, you have to do this study and deliver it to the legislature about essentially positive, negatives of combining the MPOs and what it would take to do that. So we kind of got ahead of that in the sense if that gets asked again to look at that. I don't know what the end result will be as part of the process. There are some things I would like to fix as part of it, so hopefully that will be some of the recommendations that come out of it. Sun Trail, we have a study that's looking at trying to connect up using the new sidewalk on the bridge, the Clusacci Bridge, connect up a better connection between John Yarborough and where it ends right now in Cape Coral along Kismet. And then we're also studying north-south road connection east of the interstate. The 951 extension, I've been looking at that extensively, but we want to try to look at some of the stuff with the new model further out to the east. When we started looking at the growth out to the east, and some of this, you can see the bigger circles there where growth is coming in, eastern Collier and eastern area, and doesn't even show the areas, for instance, like the 9,000 homes that are being planned at Corkscrew and 82 at the moment. So we're trying to get some handle on that. It's going to be a little while. I know there's some people asking about, well, what's going on with 951? Not a whole lot. The price is coming in, just an estimated price of about $1.8 billion, and the highest traffic on it was about 27,000 in a section. That doesn't, it was always planned to be a toll facility. 27,000 doesn't pay for it. So we started looking in the history like, well, why would we even start this if it was that? Back 20 years ago, the model said it'd be about 130,000 on the highest level at that. That would have paid for it at that point. So let me touch on some emerging transportation options and technology. So drone and robot deliveries, you've kind of seen the news story where FGCU just started deliveries by robots. There are all over the place, not necessarily in our area yet, but there are things coming. Walmart is actually expanding their drone deliveries to Orlando and Tampa soon. They are within 30 minutes or less, 5 to 10 pounds, and they've conducted 150,000, mostly in Arkansas and Texas so far. Obviously, Arkansas is their main headquarters. It's interesting looking at what people order, things like dog food, stuff like that. If you look at the top 5 things, eggs, dog food, I guess it's, you run out of it and you just ask for it and get it in 30 minutes. Other companies testing drone deliveries not so far along in the process as Amazon, FedEx, and UPS. Robots will deliver food, as I said. Miami has a lot of it already working out there. So autonomous shuttles. I know when we talked about this 5-6 years ago as part of the last plan, we actually did model runs. If they said, okay, if we had 30% autonomous vehicles out there, what would that do for the driving, from a capacity standpoint? We're not that far along now. And it wasn't going to be 30% in 5 years, but it's not actually going as fast as originally stated. But the Waymo is planning to they're testing right now this year in Miami, and they're planning to come to Miami in 2026, next year. There are AV shuttles all over the place. Most of these are like test or demonstration projects, but I've listed all the ones that are on there. Jacksonville is actually starting out with some where they have a company there that's going to build 100 of them for them. The advanced air mobility, you're going to hear more about that through the summer. FDOT has it, not only because if you've tracked some of the legislation, there was a lot of legislation this year that had stuff in there about being open to accepting AAM planning in our communities. This summer, FDOT is holding an advanced air mobility workshop. In the morning, it's with staff to talk to staff about the planning for that, and then in the afternoon, it's with elected officials as well. It's a mix of vehicles, obviously, from EVO to eVTOL. You can talk about stuff like delivery of packages from drones. Now, FDOT's kind of focus at the moment is from passengers, but it also can move cargo as well. The one thing that's advantage from a longer-term standpoint, they are a little bit cheaper than, say, the most expensive helicopters, but they're looking at it as cheaper to operate, and then obviously you can save a lot more money if at some point it gets to autonomous and you pull the pilot out. Not there yet either. So these are some of the companies that put out there: Archer, Joby, Lilium, and Whisk. I'm doing this off the top of my head. All four of them said they're coming to Miami in the next couple of years. Some of these are like Archer was kind of a startup company. Some of these other ones, like I think it's Beta or Blade, one of those, they already do like helicopter trips from downtown New York out to the Hamptons, that type of thing. So they're looking at transitioning. But there's also from the Skyport side of it, this will be something that even at the airport, for instance, there's a little part that's carved out in their master plan, like over where the old rental car agencies were from the old terminal. U8 there is where they've carved out a place for Vertiport, maybe changing in the future depending on what happens with the commercial development out there as well. So some of the local examples of technology stuff is US 41 Frame Project. That was looking at how can we connect vehicles with roadside units and pedestrians. But some of the things that are coming out of that is the automated traffic signal performance measures and connected autonomous vehicle solutions. Centrac Signal, the county's working on that technology for preemption, but also Lee-Tran system priority, where essentially if there was coming up to a bus and to a stop light and they're, say, behind schedule, not if you're on schedule, it might add a few seconds where the bus can go through, that type of thing. The one thing they're talking about with the preemption is going to be smarter than where they'll know the routing of the vehicle. So you'll see sometimes where, go to Collier, for instance, where a fire truck will come through, it'll preempt it, and the lights are still on, it comes near the intersection, it'll preempt it again. It's going to know, it can be a little smarter than that. They're getting a little bit smarter from that side. Wrong way driver notifications on interstate. If you've seen the signs and the cameras and the lights up there, that's to try to avoid some of the wrong way of driving. Some of that still happens since they were in there. We'll see what happens long term with that. So ongoing challenges, lower state revenues, which I mentioned before. I said flat local revenues may be coming down at some point. With the projections, at least with our population growth, it's still got some growth when you start talking about that with gas tax, but as Commissioner Hammond is mentioning, we just have more fuel-efficient vehicles. Even if you don't go out and buy an electric vehicle, I have a hybrid that has 50 miles to the gallon, which, the average is, 10 years ago, or about 22, and it just keeps climbing from there, which impacts how much money we bring in. Every year now, for the last 5 to 10 years, there's been something in the legislature. There's already 34 states that have an electric vehicle registration fee. We don't have that. There's been something every year. There was a registration fee a couple of years ago. This year, it was transferring money from what's collected in electricity over to the Transportation Trust Fund. The bill that got passed, they pulled it out before that was done, so that's not in there. So the flat revenue is against the backdrop of increasing project costs. I only put 2 of them up here. It's the asphalt and also the concrete pricing. There's a whole, if you look at FDOT, they have all kinds of projections of everything from heavy equipment and everything else. And I think the interesting part of that is if you're going back to 2000, what the difference. You got things that tripled in price. But if you look at the way that line is just in the last 5 years, too. Now, the projections have come down a little bit. If you look at the middle line is kind of what they follow out of that. So hopefully that happens. But that increase was what we're substantially dealing with when you start talking about what can get funded. So we mentioned all the long-term impact. The driver behavior, I've talked about it before, fatalities, injuries, and congestion, because people that just sit at the signal and don't move doesn't help us at all either. Changes to permitting and water treatment, I mentioned that in there. If you go to like Burnstow Road, the main line right-of-way cost is about $1 million. The pond sites are about $28 million. And the thing, and this is not with the regulations changing, the ones moving forward, we used to assume in the planning level of it that we needed 3 acres per mile, and now they're saying I need to either triple or quadruple that. So you're talking about a lot more acreage as part of that process. The traffic growth at major intersections with less opportunity for desirable solutions. At one time, if you looked at the long-range plans from the past, there were about 22 overpasses planned in Lee County. Now, besides the fact that trying to build them from a construction cost, it's not always that popular with people that are surround them. So CFIs have been coming up. Now, the issue with that continuous flow intersection, that's if you're at like 6 Mile and Colonia right now, that's what that is. That was what was planned for Daniels and Metro. They've kind of backed off on that because that had turned into a $50 million right-of-way, which that's not what the assumption was originally. It was about $16 million program for right-of-way in the program in the last few years. So I open it up for any comments or questions anybody has.
We have Warren. Do you have the mic? If anybody has any questions, we have time for a couple.
So I'm just curious with the air mobility, moving people, moving packages, how do you control that traffic?
So if you look at it from their planning so far, drones will be up to whatever, a certain height. These will be another height, and then your aircraft above that. But that's one of the issues they're obviously dealing with as part of that process. Obviously landing and things like that. If you read some of the stuff about where they're locating, because one of the things that I think they're starting with is, all right, if I want to take an international flight, usually you want to try to go out of Miami, maybe taking a AAM from Fort Myers RSW to Miami. But if they're too close to the runway, then you can't come in at the same time. So there are issues related to that.
Yeah, I'll put myself on the spot. I saw in your chart, your stats, a 68% increase in population for Cape Coral, but I didn't see a whole lot of projects for Cape Coral. So I was curious what was happening with all that.
So there's, these are the projects that are kind of shown in there. 78, Burnstow Road, obviously the Cape Coral Bridge, the midpoint, which Commissioner Hammond mentioned before, I think now is more of the intersections on both sides of it.
Right.
The city themselves, they're looking at things like Chiquita, 24th. We're also looking at some other areas. So, there's more there. In the needs plan, it has an overpass at Santa Barbara and Veterans as well. Okay. There are projects in there. I know I go to each of the communities and everybody complains you're not spending enough in our area. But
is there plans for like downtown Cape Coral? Because that's really starting to grow, so I was curious about that.
So obviously, you mentioned earlier Cape Coral Parkway, where they're between Coronado and Del Prado, where they're looking at taking out the parking spaces there and making that 6 lanes to match up with the 6 lanes of the bridge. So that's the one thing in there. There are some things that are nearby, but not specifically the roadways around that.
Question about Gladiolus and 41. Is there a flyover plan for that?
That's still a question out of it. I think if you looked at the old traffic, it would have been something of a flyover like 41 over 6 Mile. The one thing I've noticed lately, when I went to the public meeting, they didn't have the traffic yet, so we'll see what happens from there. It's different at different times. You used to go during peak and it was horrible. Now at like 10 and 11 in the morning, it seems worse than at 5 o'clock in the evening. So we'll see as they have the traffic moving forward. There's some thoughts of maybe doing something with Old Gladiolus. And I don't know if they look at a CFI. The issue is, obviously, if they had $50 million of right-of-way at Daniels and Metro, what is that in that corner? So.
I'm sorry, guys. We're going to have to wrap it up. But Don, if you could stick around for a few minutes to get your questions answered, that would be great. Thank you so much for that. And Alicia as well, if you want to hang out. We just want to go ahead and get any voting member input that there may be.
Perfect meeting for me today. I'm starting a citizens initiative on this 1% sales tax. I've said it before about school boards about to end. They're 10 years. I want to make it a 1% for the roads and the schools renewed. I'm calling it SOS squared, Save Our Schools and Streets. We've got to do it. Everything he said today and everything the school board says is they don't have enough money. I serve on the airport authority. What they just say, 36% of the people that fly in here say the roads are bad. Okay? We can take it out of our tax money of our homes, or we can get a third of it paid by people that visit here, whether they came by air, car, or whatever. The schools need it. We need it. We've got to get it done. Now's the time to start. I'm looking for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other voter input? Rachel.
I actually just have a question for Lindsay. You said it would be 1%, half for the schools and half for the roads? Right. Okay.
That's $100 million a year. So it's big.
All right. Well, as we always do, we want to thank Florida Southwestern for their hospitality and opening up this area for us. And we're going to go ahead and adjourn. But if you have those questions, please come up. Dawn's here, and Alicia's going to come up here and join them. Thank you. Have a great weekend.